Over the next 365 days, me and 4 other artists have been challenged with designing our own fantasy realms from the ground up. So we're going to be taking it episode by episode, developing a magic system, characters, notable landmarks, and anything else that will need to transfer us into this new magical world. Let's create some chaos! Disclaimer, this is the first draft of the world. Anything in these videos are subject to hopefully only minor changes over the course of the series. Before we jump into the actual episode, let's take a quick look at the map of Connexa as it's gone through some updates since the last episode. As you can see, first off, all the mainlands have names now, as well as a few icons for different villages, mountain ranges, towns, and whatnot. There's also a few neighboring areas up top that I've given names to. Shout out to Knight of Arcane for that idea for the snowy region. And that's about it. As we go more with these episodes, I'll keep updating the map, adding different landmarks, and coming up with the different names of territories. Anyway, we've taken enough time with the map, so let's actually get into Connexa and see what's going on in this episode. Let's go! Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy World Building Challenge. It has been actual months since the last episode, and I've fallen really behind all the other artists. But I'm only taking partial responsibility for that. The other part of the responsibility goes to just not really knowing how to format these videos. For some reason, I can either have something to talk about, but no idea what to draw for it, or something to draw with really no idea how to talk about it. I can never have both. So really, we're just gonna wing the rest of this series and hope for the best. Anyway, in the last episode, we took a look at the artistic and creative lands of now only known as the Deadlands. And today we're going to be heading to the complete opposite side of the map to look at arguably one of the most important locations in all of Connexa, the Kingdom of AARALLA. Sitting along the coast of the southern mainland, AARALLA is the main governing body of Connexa. While all towns, villages, and kingdoms have governments and ruling bodies of their own, they all report to the King of AARALLA. Think of it like how America has governments for each of their states, and then a president for the whole country who also deals with international affairs. The AARALLAN king promotes peace and prosperity, maintaining good connections between every town, village, and kingdom in Connexa. However, when it comes to Connexa's neighboring lands, AARALLA is always ready to deploy their military at a moment's notice. While the northern mainland was once home to all the artistic and creatives of Connexa, the southern mainland is home to everything militaristic, with AARALLA having the most powerful military force within the entire country. Relations with all the neighboring territories of Connexa have reached the highest point of tension in history, and as such, the AARALLAN king is distrustful towards them. However, the king opted for a more defensive strategy than an offensive one, preferring to keep his troops close to home in case of any invading forces. In order to protect AARALLA and Connexa, the king constructed a massive wall to the south that wraps around the coast of Connexa's southern mainland. As I mentioned in this episode and the last one, each mainland of Connexa specializes in a different aspect of life. Was the land of art and creatives. The central mainland, known as Beausevel, specializes in farming and cultivating food and livestock. And Hadelquam, the southernmost mainland, is the home of all of Connexa's military forces, training soldiers and building defenses. All kingdoms across Hadelquam train and station soldiers to other towns throughout Connexa, with each kingdom specializing in a different form of combat. Though in more recent times they've had an excess of soldiers and were able to deploy more to the central mainland, as they no longer had to send any soldiers to after it was wiped out by the Eternal Darkness and became the Deadlands. However, AARALLA likes to keep the best of the best soldiers for itself, stationing them in the main kingdom to defend from any invading forces. One of the most highly revered knights stationed in AARALLA is Nox Lanitor. Nox worked the hardest out of all his peers across the entire mainland, learning every specialty of combat that each kingdom had to offer, a feat not usually offered to many knights in training. Nox was able to train in multiple kingdoms only partly due to his determination and drive. The other factor comes from his relationship with the AARALLA king. Many sun cycles ago, the AARALLA king found a young child Nox wandering alone in the woods. Not knowing where he was from, the king brought the child into the castle and raised Nox as a surrogate son, giving him only the most lavish amenities, while also teaching Nox the values of hard work. Nox learned discipline, various forms of combat and weapon use, and leadership, joining the group of knights around the southern wall of AARALLA as his first assignment. While stationed at the wall with his fellow knights, Nox was soon promoted and was tasked with commanding a sector of the wall. Leading with a stern hand, Nox defended AARALLA, Hadelquam, and Connexa from any threats from the south, turning even the most incompetent knights into fine soldiers. His icy stare was said to force a person to focus on their duties, and some even stating that his eyes seemed to glow with a fury beyond what they even thought was possible. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, I'm kind of struggling with how to format these fantasy world building videos. As much, I cycled through a lot of different ideas for what to do for episode 2. I thought about diving into some more villages and towns. I had some characters that I thought about including, but I'm still on the fence about them, so they're on the back burner for now. And so instead, I just decided to go from one end of the map to the other and focus on the most important kingdom in the whole country, and one of the characters that I thought up that just so happens to live there. Once I had an actual idea that I felt I could both draw and talk about, I had to figure out what to draw. I wanted a fully realized piece instead of just a character sheet for Nox, and so I sketched out a few ideas with him in front of the castle. However, I'm still not super confident when it comes to designing environments and my background work yet, so I ended up just going with the big wall that stretches along the southern coast of AARALLA. Sure, it doesn't lend to the most interesting background, but I think it makes up for that with the sense of scale that the wall provides, and the fact that I got some perspective practice in, so half a dozen to one, 6 to the other. I'm really happy with how this whole piece came out, especially Nox's design. I had been sketching him for a while and I've had a few ideas that I've been working with, but this was the first time I really locked in and focused on what the armor would look like and how Nox overall would just look in my complete style. We'll get to those air quotes in a second. I made some changes in the armor in this design from the initial sketches that I really liked, and I can't wait to see it in action. Though, the more I talk about Nox and the more I go back to his character sheet, I realize there are some aspects that I'm going to need to add to his design to make his whole character make a little bit more sense. Now for those air quotes in my previous sentence. Editor, run it back. Nox overall would just look in my complete style. Yeah, those. I didn't go fully with my traditional style of rendering in this piece, as I'm sure some of you have noticed. That's because as I was working through this piece, I came across this Instagram post from thatbirdguy_ that had a digital coloring tutorial that I kind of liked the style of. So, with really no reason not to, I said, you know what, let's try it out. I've got time in this weird sporadic schedule that KyngPin Creations is now on. Once again, I'm sorry. And I tried it out. As it was my first time, I didn't follow every step perfectly, mostly because I really didn't understand how the alpha locking worked in both the tutorial and Clip Studio Paint, but I also added in elements of my usual style, such as the black comic book-like shading and the stark white rim lighting that I took from Marvel Rivals, and the two combined created this pretty unique style that I've never done before, and I'm glad I tried it, and I'm considering trying it again for future pieces. Also, quick little disclaimer note kind of thing. I would have done more art for this episode and maybe even tried designing what AARALLA would have looked like using basic shapes from Blender and drawing over those. But my stupid body got sick and took me out for a couple days, so I couldn't do anything. Thanks, you stupid meat sack. Let's look at the final result. and our fantasy world grows ever so slightly. I'm really happy I got to do another video of these, and I've got some ideas of how this is gonna start working now, and I got some ideas for the next episode, so maybe I'll do another one of those just so I don't lose steam, and so I can catch up with the other artists. And as I so often forget to mention in these videos, if you would like a poster of this piece, it will be available on my Teespring store. Link in the description below. Again, thank you all so much for bearing with me on this new sporadic schedule that the channel is on. All the other projects that I work on have taken up a lot more of my time at the start of the new year, and I haven't been able to get it under control. And I just started taking a film class, which is now eating up even more of my time. But I'm working on organizing my schedule to try and get back into that efficiency that I was able to do last year. But only time will tell how well that's gonna work. And that's all I've got for you today. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, feel free to hit the like and subscribe button. And while you're at it, why not check out some other videos in this fantasy world building series? Hopefully at some point that statement means there's more than one other episode, but until then, there's still another one for you to watch. My name is KyngPin Creations, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Take care, everyone.